Arizona, Colorado, Indiana, Michigan, New Jersey, Tennessee, and Virginia. Listen up. WynnBET is now live in all these states, and the excitement of Wynn Las Vegas has finally landed in online sports betting and casino play. From boosted parlays to live in-game offs on every major sport, WynnBET gives you the tools to win. Sign up today for your risk-free $1,000 sports bet. Download the WynnBET app now or visit wynnbet.com to start winning.
You are listening to Dove Valley Deep Divers with Erick Trickel
and Lance Sanderson.
Ball comes out of the hands of Newton. It's on the ground, picked up by TJ Ward at the 4-yard line. Vaughn Miller did it again.
On Overtime Media.
And I know they are for me because I'm joined by Erick today for Dove Valley Deep Divers. Thanks for having me on. And Erick, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. And I mean, it's more like you're joining me tonight. I mean, this is normal with Dove Valley Deep Divers anyways, but I'm glad you're able to join. For those of you who aren't aware, Lance is out being a caveman, a modern caveman, basically. So I believe he should be back next week. But yeah, I'm excited to have you join me, Nick. It's always enjoyable when you and I get to sit here and butt heads and chat about Broncos football, draft, whatever the topic may be.
Yeah, last time we did just you and me, it was the show immediately following the draft after being live for like 18, 19 hours. And everyone's like, nobody wants to do that. I'm like, people will tune in. I still want to talk football. And you jug around with me, so that was good. But it's good to be here again. Obviously, you guys can follow Erick and myself on Twitter, Erick at Erick Trickel, and myself at Nick Kendell MHH. And while you're there, make sure you're following us also at DVDD_pod, as well as at Mile High Huddle. I haven't read that one many times in my life, but make sure you follow us. That is obviously short for the Dove Valley Deep Divers, who we're here with today. Go to Facebook.com also, huddleuppod.com, get your swag on, but then go to Facebook.com/Mile High Huddle and Facebook.com/Mile High Huddle pod to join us on Facebook, to join the discussion. I know that a lot of people are going to have a lot of discussion with the quarterback, with what the heck's going on with the defense, injuries galore, the draft probably coming up here pretty soon, deadline. So join us on Facebook to get those comments in, to join us there and talk about that. Also subscribe on YouTube to our channel. Like, subscribe, share, hit those alerts. That way you can join us when we go live. We have a show live every day at 5 p.m. I guess should be at 5 p.m. Sometimes we're a little bit late, but that's okay. And yeah, we also have a big giveaway going on right now. Also, October's wrapping up here pretty soon, which makes me sad. We're actually getting hit with a bomb cyclone here in the Pacific Northwest, but winter right around the corner. October's coming to a close, but we are flying towards our goal of 250,000 stars. This is obviously, we're got some work to do there, but that's okay over on Facebook. So get the stars in and you get a chance to win a Patrick Surtain, the second jersey, which if yesterday's game is any indication, that Patrick Surtain jersey is going to be a good one to have for a long time. You know, a lot of people say you want to get the classics for the jerseys. Surtain's going to be one that's probably valuable for 5, 10, 12 years, which is great for a cornerback. So our top star givers right now, I want to give them a shout out. Randy Jones coming in number 1 right now, giving himself a great chance for that Surtain jersey. Josh Hoyle, number 2. We got Lawrence Rivera coming in at number 3 there. Scrolling on down, we got Michael Ronquillo at 4. We got Mama Moody there at 5. Shane Daniels coming in at 6. Andrew Lampy, who's always joining us, at 7. Peter Middleton over in Cambodia at 8. Travis Weber, good friend of mine, at 9. And we got Doug Reichel at 10. Andrew Baker just butting right in there. So yeah, get those stars in. You guys want to get in the top 10. Also make sure it's not just our star givers. It's over on YouTube as well. Obviously we have our top ones here. Mark from Georgia, go Dogs. I'll give you that, Mark. Michaela Parker coming in. We got Christy, Naj, Seth Harmon, Chris Hernandez, DW, Brian Greenfield, and shooting into the top 10, Aaron Lynch right now. And even though, he displaced Shane Daniels and everybody, a couple behind him, that's okay. It's more like it's because he has been so good, right? It's not because you have performed poorly. It's like the college football rankings, right? He just got a big victory here and moved on up. And here's our top movers right now. Thomas Rainier. I'll just say Rainier because Pacific Northwest. Eddie Vasquez, Diamond Rattler coming in. Carla Taylor, Gilbert Villasenar. Sorry, it's kind of pixelated there. Cristoval, Jess C13, Patriot Tex, Collection Connection. He's been joining us in the mornings. Phoenix, Kaniki, Cody W. Thank you guys so much for getting those super chats in, those super stickers, super stars, everything like that, and getting supporting Mile High Huddle, and then also getting a chance to give yourself a chance to win that Patrick Surtain jersey and keep the lights on in here for us. That's what it's about, right? Support us so that way we can continue to have fun up here and you guys can have fun with us. But let's get into it today. Eric, what are we talking about? Did anything happen yesterday? I don't know. I blacked out. I feel like from 5 o'clock Mountain Time or Pacific Time onwards, I'm just like, here I am. It's been 24 hours. I don't even know what happened. What's going on?
Listen up, Broncos country. TickPick should be your first choice to buy football tickets because they save fans money by never charging any service fees ever. TickPick is the exclusive ticketing partner for the Huddle Up podcast and the Blue Wire Network.
Denver Broncos football is finally back, and there's no need to exhaust yourself searching all over the internet to find Broncos tickets anymore. Because TickPick, that's TickPick, is the original no-fee ticket site and the only one you'll ever need as your go-to for all NFL tickets. TickPick got rid of all those awful service fees that the other ticket sites charge, which lets them guarantee the best prices on all of their NFL tickets. Don't believe it? If you can find better prices for the same seats on another ticket site, TickPick will give you 110% of the difference in the purchase price.
That's right, guys. When we were searching for tickets for the MHH meet and greet for Week 3 at home, Broncos versus Jets, TickPick had us locked down. So visit tickpick.com/huddle today and use the promo code HUDDLE to save $10 on your first order of Broncos tickets.
I mean, if we want to bring up bad memories and the nightmare show from last night, I guess there was, I don't want to really call it a football game, but two teams, they took the field and one just stampeded all over the other. Basically, it was a extremely rough showing, and this was the worst defensive performance that I've seen from the Broncos in quite some time. It wasn't the fact that they allowed a lot of points. It was their inability to just stop anything the Browns threw at them.
Yeah, I will say I'm going to try to be a little bit more positive today because the Broncos country is very toxic. Just to balance it out a little bit, the defense came out tremendously bad, especially those first two drives. I think it was 10 points, 10-0 after the first two drives, almost instantly. After that, they only gave up another 7 points, I think, the rest of the game, right? 17-10 final. So I thought the defense, after those first two drives, it would have been really easy for them just to pack it up and go home. I mean, they looked bad. They couldn't stop the run. Your guys are getting injured out there, et cetera, et cetera. I thought the defense, for the most part, played with pride, at least on that back end from the first two drives on. It wasn't great. It wasn't perfect, but at least they wanted to be out there and had a little bit of pride, which is something I thought I did not see in that Raiders game last week, especially from the mid-third quarter on. So it was unfortunate, but at least I thought personally there was some standouts. There was some pride shown, and I feel a little bit better coming out of this game than I did that Raiders game, which is still even a bad taste in my mouth.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't an abysmal performance from start to finish, but even the Raiders game, like the defense still had their moments at times in that one. This one, it was just that it seemed to be outside of a couple players. It just seemed like no one had any self-respect on the Broncos defense. Jonathan Cooper, he played extremely well. There's no doubt about that. Draymond Jones, he had a really good game. Both of them ended the night with 5 pressures. Von Miller was having a game. And if it wasn't for Shelby Harris, the Browns would have ended up with at least another 3 points. Probably 7 with the first play he made with that one sack.
Yep.
So there were definitely good moments from it, but it was just lack of energy consistently. And it was just, again, it was how they got beat. Just they had 2 guys there at linebacker. They're obviously missing Alexander Johnson and Josie Jewell. And it was just basically open country there in the middle of the field. And the Browns just exploited it consistently.
Yeah, you and I kind of went back and forth earlier this week on our smaller group chat about Justin Strnad and his run fitting. And I said, that's obviously not his game, but like what he's going to have to do now, I am scared bleepless because I thought his run fits had been A, a little bit slow, and B, I thought he'd been guessing wrong on some of his gaps. And if an offensive lineman gets his hands on him, he's going for a ride, right? And I thought that especially the first quarter, both he and Micah Kiser, who suffered a hand injury, who's going to be out a couple weeks now. God bless. When it rains, it pours. But I was not super impressed with any of the options the Broncos had at off-ball linebacker. And I know I say tongue-in-cheek, linebackers are the running back of the defense, but same with your defensive tackle, right? In the run game. You don't want to invest highly in a position for a guy who's purely a run stopper, but if you are completely anemic, completely inept at stopping the run, you're going to see what you saw in this last game against the Browns. A no-named running back, injury at right tackle, didn't matter. They took it to the Broncos. They dictated, and it was gross. It was gross. I don't
Yeah.
I don't know how much you can take from it.
And with Justin Snow, it wasn't that I thought he was doing like a great job against the run. And in that conversation that we had about it, I even said that if a blocker gets his hands on him, he's done.
Yeah.
There were just some very bright spots against it. There was a couple run fills against Ravens in particular, I think it was, that he shot through, was right through the right hole and got there, met the linebacker or the running back. Tackling was an issue with him as well throughout it. So it wasn't exactly that I thought he was great. I just don't think that he was absolutely terrible, but in this one, he was terrible. I mean, it was consistently wrong. And the Browns, they didn't really focus a lot on getting a blocker on him because his tackling was so poor and they were just able to break through it. And then he would just look lost in coverage and it was just a mess from both of them. And one thing I noticed too is that when it comes to Mike Purcell, the last few games especially, it seems like they're just kind of letting him penetrate because they know they can just attack those linebackers with how bad they've been and just attack the void that Mike Purcell leaves. So Denver's got to figure something out there. But before we get going, I want to say hello to the chat. We got a bunch of you guys in here joining us tonight. A lot of familiar faces. We got Chase Wellner coming in. We got R. Powell. Kobe, it's good to see you here. I mean, we've got James Cook, Flippin' Booch, Maurice, Bama. It's good to see you back in your Big E Bronco, Mark Linden mood. All of you guys, it's great to see you. And Chase came in with that $2 donation and said, easiest game of Keenum's career. Yeah, I mean, it was with just how well they ran the ball. I mean, he didn't have to do much. And when he did, I'll say that's when the Broncos defense managed to step up more, was when he had to put the ball in his hands. Again, Jonathan Cooper had a good game, and Patrick Surtain and a couple other guys had some big moments in coverage, but it was easy. I mean, when you run the ball that well, that effectively, it takes so much pressure off the quarterback.
Yeah, it really does. And it takes a lot of pressure off the quarterback. Also, the Broncos were not super threatening with the pass rush. I thought they looked better than they did against the Raiders. Von Miller was having a good game before he got his injury. And Draymond Jones and Shelby Harris had flashes. I kind of want to pivot here to and also shout out to Lawrence for the stars. And I think Andrew Lampy and Andrew Baker also come in if you want to flash them when they come up. But the point I want to get to is Malik Reed. I know that there was some talk on Broncos country and everybody, we look for patterns. That's just human nature. But Malik Reed being this next, Shaq Barrett thing going on, that whole narrative really kind of been exposed these last couple weeks. And all I can say for myself is that I eagerly await the return of Bradley Chubb to this defensive front because, my God, do they miss him. And Andrew, real quick, hello. So who is your early projections for Denver to pick? Not that I'm wishing it, but what does the record have to be for a top 10 pick? So real quick, Malik Reed, I think this is a good transition actually into projections for the early pick for the Broncos. Malik Reed, what are your thoughts on what you saw? Because I was really unimpressed with him. And I was unimpressed last week too, but this was a game where it looked like they isolated him, identified him as a weakness, and went at him.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, you and I, we've had a lot of back and forth. Even going back to college, I remember messaging you talking about Malik Reed and how I liked him a little bit. And as a late round pick, ended up going undrafted, showed flashes of it, but then it just became that he's a guy who can get pressure when coverage holds up. And that's basically it. Yep. Outside of that, he doesn't do much. Last year, he showed
he's solid in coverage.
Huh?
He's solid in coverage. Let's give him a little bit. He's pretty good when he drops back into those zones. He's not amazing, but for an edge.
For an edge, okay, on that curve, yeah. But man, you made me lose my train of thought here.
I wanted to give him. I don't want to tear down everybody. I'm trying to be a little bit positive today.
But I mean, he's a guy who he just thrives on coverage sacks. That's what a lot of them were last year.
Yeah,
and don't get me wrong, he's a valuable piece to have as a number 3 edge rusher. He's a guy who you don't want starting, but you're kind of okay with him starting, I guess. But I mean, after last night, I mean, there's no doubt about it. Broncos country, like Bradley Chubb should be the starter there. There shouldn't be any conversation, and the conversation that was going on about Malik Reed over him should be completely done and over with. And you're right, though. The Browns, they isolated him against the run especially and just ran at him because he just cannot hold up.
Yeah, Jedrick Wills versus Malik Reed. advantage Jedrick Wills, even an injured Jedrick Wills. So thank you very much. Back to the last comment. What position are the Broncos looking at in the draft? Right now, I would say edge rusher is probably just the way the board is stacking up, where the Broncos are picking. Von Miller might be traded here. If not, he's probably his last year here in Denver. Either way, Bradley Chubb injury coming off with 1 year after this one, and Malik Reed, the same thing, 1 year after this. So edge rusher right now, early projections, George Karlaftis, Adrian Hutchinson, sign me up, inject it into my veins, do whatever you want. Enema, I don't care. Maybe I don't want an enema from the 6'7" to 6'6", 280-pound edge rushers. But let's thank you very much for the comment, Andrew Lampy. Let's move on to Andrew Baker here. Real quick, do you think besides edge rushers, is there anything else that stands out? I mean, tackle, cornerback, etc. Sorry about the enema comment there, Eric. I threw you off there. We're having fun. It's Friday night, right?
As for his other positions, I mean, obviously you got to look at offensive tackle. Bobby Massey, he's not cutting it. Garrett Bowles, well, he had a solid game last night, and I don't think his season has been as terrible as most others, but definitely regression from last year, which, I mean, last year was an outlier, so some regression was expected. But they got to figure something out, because this offensive line, they just don't have much of an attitude. They got to get somebody there. So offensive tackle, it's a pretty good class. There's some options there. I doubt they'll get Evan Neal out of Alabama, unless they somehow end up with the top 5 pick or he manages to fall. So who knows there? There's a couple other guys in this tackle class, but this is a tackle class that I think most of them will do much better inside at guard. And because there's a lot of guys who are right on the edge, it seems to be, with length, that when we find out about there, that'll help me get an idea of where I'd rather play them. But the other one is, as you said, is corner. I mean, George Paton, he loves his corners, and we're seeing that this corner group, as hyped as it was made out to be, has completely fallen flat. I mean, Patrick Surtain, he's the only one out there playing pretty good consistently. Bryce Callahan was playing extremely well before the last 2 weeks, and he started to struggle a little bit. So kind of wonder if the issues with the other corners are kind of falling on him a little bit, and he's one of those players that's just trying to do a little bit too much. Ronald Darby, I mean, he missed some time. Like, he could still be bothered by the injury, but Kyle Fuller was a complete bust of a pickup. And he's a guy, for the main topic of this, we'll get to it here in a little bit. He's one guy that Denver, they've got to be floating his name out on the trade market. So corner's definitely one. I know that you like Andrew Booth out of Clemson quite a bit. There's the Florida kid, but I mean, if Denver can get, and I know you tweeted this out, Derek Stingley from LSU, and pair him with Patrick Surtain, that would be a outstanding duo for the future if they both develop.
I mean, literally just blitz everybody every play, because you play cover zero. Who cares, right? You could actually run the Wade Phillips defense if you had those two cornerbacks on the outside. And Andrew Baker coming in with the stars also. We really appreciate you, Andrew. It's not that we're losing, but embarrassing how we're losing. Shake my head. I'm fine with the season maybe being done, but can we see some Dan Fire the rest of the games? Probably not. Hashtag Mile High Huddle for life. Hashtag Denver Broncos for life. And I hear you, Andrew. I do think that the Broncos did come out and at least showed a little bit of pride last night. And so I, like I said, I'm not nearly as upset coming out of this game as I was that Raiders game, where it's like, that's your rival. Your season is on the line. You're going against a team with no head coach. What do you do? And this was a short week. Obviously the run fits got a little better. They were so bad the first 2 drives as the game went on. And I thought they flexed a little bit. Offense couldn't respond, but I hear you. It's going to be a long season, but we're going to try to look through the negatives and maybe the outcome of the game and look for positives and good direction forward. Speaking of good direction forward, Aaron Lynch, $5 over on YouTube, trying to get that Patrick Surtain jersey, talking about good direction forward. Surtain was awesome last night, mostly. As embarrassing as it all was, I enjoyed talking football with you fellas during the game. So what's the next move for Denver? Cheers, boys. Eric, what do you think the next move is for Denver?
To hopefully get a spark from either making trades or something like that. And it's problematic because their next game is the Washington football team. And this is one of the games that I can see Denver going out and actually manage to scrape a win out of.
Yeah.
But my concern is this is a team, it's clear that they're not ready and they should be loading up on capital. So they should be making moves at the trade deadline of selling players. But if they win that game, I think that it's going to be the opposite. I think it's going to, George Paton and Vic Fangio, they're going to be like, all right, we just need some extra talent. We got to improve our linebacker core with both our starters out with injury, and they'll end up being buyers. So I have a concern there. I think that they should know what they are by now. And it's clear that it's unlikely that they're going to be able to push for the playoffs, become sellers, and prepare for the rebuild that this team has needed for a few years that stubborn old John Elway has just not wanted to do.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with you here. I do worry that this Washington football team is inept enough across the board that I mean, I know the Broncos have been the most disappointed in defense in football, but Washington football team cannot be far behind. They've been really unfortunate there, and maybe it'll be a spark there for the Broncos to get a win. Whether you're cheering for the win or not at this point, I don't know. I'm not going to tell you how to fan. I absolutely hate gatekeeping at fans. That's the only way to do fandom wrong is be a gatekeeper. But it is interesting. What's next from here? I think the Broncos have to figure out what the heck they're going to do with the off-ball linebacker position. Right now, you have Micah Kaiser went down. Justin Strnad looks way out of his depths. And Curtis Robinson was the other linebacker out that I don't even remember his name because he was an undrafted free agent. And I was like, okay, who's that again? Oh, that's right. Who's that again? Multiple times in the game. And I think I had to do that because he kept just getting washed out. I'm like, oh, he must be a safety. He's that far down the field. No, he's getting washed out of the play. So I think the Broncos they're going to have to drill that in. And part of run fit and all that is feel and experience with the defense. And on the short week, you had a really tough ask of them to do that, but not that bad. So I expect them to look better there. And if there's any move they're going to make, they need to bring in a body at linebacker. I know people have thrown it out, and I'm always like, oh, leave the past in the past. Let's move on. But like Todd Davis is right there in Denver already. I mean, I don't know what you actually have to lose bringing him in because it can't be worse than what we saw this last game.
That's exactly it. And moving over to the topic for tonight about being sellers and trading players, there's actually an interesting one that trade that was thrown around on Twitter this morning that I saw from Cowboys people that they seem to really want to add depth to their cornerback room, and it's not a rumor or anything. It was just an option from a Cowboys blogger or a media guy. I can't remember his name. Of making a move for Kyle Fuller with Leighton Vander Esch being one of the pieces for it. How would you feel about that?
I think Leighton Vander Esch is a heck of a talent, but he has had so many injuries that he'd have to pass medicals before that. Also, I'm not sure what his contract situation is. The Broncos are not in a position where they should be looking for people who are not at least multiple years of contract control. And also, I'm not sure, is he one that has that 5th year option coming up next season? And how does that translate in a trade?
I don't think that he has it. I think it was the same thing, same year as Bradley Chubb he was drafted, right? So it would have been this last March, and they didn't pick it up. So he's a free agent after the season.
So like, that's the thing. Like, are we, I'm not in a position. I would think the Broncos are not in a position to give up any extra draft capital right now. I mean, even if you're talking about filling in for a linebacker that the team desperately needs, just go to free agency. You can't even afford to give up a 6th-round pick right now for where you at. You need those pieces. You need the cost-controlled guys on the back end. You need the depth. I mean, obviously, with how injured this team is, you need the depth. So if it's Kyle Fuller for Leighton Vander Esch straight up, maybe I definitely would consider that then, because then at least Leighton Vander Esch has a way to play himself to a contract after the season, where I don't see that with Fuller. But if it's like anything like Kyle Fuller plus even a 7 for Leighton Vander Esch, I'm probably going to pass. I'd rather have the 7th, as tough as that is.
Yeah, and I mean, after I saw this, I turned on a little bit of Cowboys games today, and Leighton Vander Esch has been rough this season. Like, it's been really rough, and it seems that the injuries that he's been dealing with has really slowed him down and been problematic for him and what development he had. So it's one of those moves where I'm with you. If you can get him, even though he's younger with all the issues that he has, if you can get him for Kyle Fuller straight up, I'm all for it. Mm-hmm. But I'm just not sure that's going to be the case because of the age difference between the two.
Yeah, and the perceived upside, right? Like that's always a big one. And linebacker doesn't tend to hit the cliff that unfortunately looks like Fuller has fallen off right now. But some good news, I guess, coming in there. I'm getting a little bit of feedback, Eric. Hopefully, I don't know. Hopefully you guys aren't hearing that too. But the one that I'm excited for is, it sounds like Jerry Jeudy's going to be back this next week. And my goodness, do the Broncos need them some Jerry Jeudy, this offense? Shermer, sometimes I think he deserves a lot of blame, but his scheme needs guys who can win those one-on-ones. And right now the Broncos don't have anybody who's winning those one-on-one routes. And at least coming back with Jeudy, definitely one of the best route runners in the game, as one of the best route running prospects I've ever seen. That should help a lot for this offense.
Yeah, and that's part of the reason why I think that Denver can come out and beat this game against the Washington football team, is having Jerry Jeudy back is such a key for this offense, and losing him was so problematic. and it took a lot away from this offense. And now the offense's issues are far beyond losing him, but it's something that I think that having him back will help settle down the offense a little bit. They'll still have their issues. They'll still be rough on the offensive line. Play calling is still going to be problematic. They're still going to have issues, but it's one of the reasons why I think that Denver turn around and win this game.
Yeah, and we got some super chats coming in now. God bless you guys. I love you. This is a lot of fun to do with Eric and you guys, and I know I did it this morning too, but no better way to work through exercise the demons of what's going on in Broncos country than to talk with you guys, and you guys support us like this. Based Gaze coming on with the new picture here, making me sad, Based, because now it's a Broncos meme. Scooby-Doo with Vic Fangio being Vance Joseph. I don't know, man. Both same dude. I don't know. It's rough. But base case, $5. It figures in a year where we might have a top 5 pick. There are no solid quarterback options in the draft. Maybe we should punt on quarterback until 2023. We still have half the college season to go, right? And things can change. But right now, I don't think there's any quarterback I would be comfortable using a top 10 pick on. Maybe Matt Corral. I mean, Malik Willis's last 2 games. I don't know if you've watched Liberty. You like to wait until the end of the season to kind of just run through the games. Malik Willis has been like day 3 quality tape the last 3 games he's played. But Matt Corral, maybe in the top 10. I don't love it. And as unfair as it might be, every single prospect I go up against this year, I compare it to Justin Fields as a prospect. Not as an NFL, not Bears so far. We're waiting to see on that. I haven't watched very much of him actually at Chicago, but as a prospect, watched a lot of Ohio State. Nobody comes close to what I watched last year with Justin Fields as that prospect. And if you're going to use a higher pick or an equivalent pick on a lesser quarterback prospect in a class that actually is better at cornerback overall this year than last year, what the hell are we even doing? Pardon my language, but like, what are we even doing? It's so frustrating. Just take another redshirt year. I don't know. God.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a believer that no matter what, you should always take a quarterback at some point every draft. So I think that Denver this year, they should draft one. I don't think that they should use a first round pick on one. Not this year. This is a year where I'm not sold that the depth of the class will be able to become solid guys in the NFL, but there's enough options in this depth range day 2 that I would take that shot there and see what they can become, and then just be more willing to upgrade next year. And so, like Matt Corral, he's gonna be a first round pick. I mean,
yeah, 2 tools.
I don't think he should be. I mean, he's just got, as you said, he's got too many tools. The ability to run and use his legs is just the way the NFL is going. Malik Willis, I mean, I still think that he ends up as a first round pick. Carson Strong as well, which apparently he's dealing with some medical concerns that Dane Brugler mentioned out on Twitter the other day. So it's rough for me because I really don't see where the Broncos can go at the quarterback position besides running it back with Teddy and Drew Lock or some other Ryan Fitzpatrick, some other Tyrod Taylor. Because honestly, why would some of these veterans that the Broncos have been rumored to be wanting, why would they want to come to Denver? I mean, I know being in a trade, they don't have much of a choice, but teams, when you have a franchise quarterback, you don't typically want to sit there and be like, yeah, we're not going to listen to anything you have to say when it comes to trading you.
Yeah, we'll see. We got a lot of season to go, and the Broncos could get some more capital here. They have a lot of cap space as well, which could turn around things quickly. Although Paton's free agency class from this last year is looking pretty rough out of the gate. I guess not even out of the gate, over a quarter through the season. But, you got some cash. You might be able to do some stuff. Speaking of got some cash and able to do some stuff, Naj, $20 over on YouTube. Thank you so much, Naj. Hey, brothers, seems like Fangio and Paton won't make any changes, so I've lost all hope for the rest of the season. Come sit down next to me, buddy. Fangio seems absolutely clueless about how bad things are. If they get the first pick, who do they take? Okay, now this... I always love Naj because he gets his money's worth when he brings it in. Fangio being clueless, everything like that. Hope for the rest of the season for sure. Fangio has been really making me mad in these press conferences because nothing ticks me off more from a head coach than pointing the finger at everybody but yourself. Maybe it's cliche to say the buck stops here, but still, I want my coach, when teams are having success, lift your guys up. When teams are struggling, put it on yourself. That's what a good coach does. You limit the distractions and you put it on yourself and say, I've got to be better. I've got to put them in a better situation. Fangio, every single week, keeps saying the exact opposite, where he's like, oh, well, we put them in a good position. And there's no way this locker room can have his back at this point, right? Like, there's just every single comment. I feel like it's a shot towards the guys on his team. And there's already questions about how much they like Fangio in that locker room, this can't be helping.
Yeah, but before I give my opinion on that, I just want to say, Nick, you absolutely missed out on meeting how awesome of a character Naj is, because he was there at the meet and greet. He was super awesome, hilarious. Got in trouble with Chad too. Like, it was just a great time, Naj, and I'm glad you're able to
my guy.
And as for this question, I mean, with the whole Vic Fangio stuff, I mean, I watched the press conference today, and he said something that just made me laugh. And he was asked about Von Miller, and all of Von Miller's basically trash talk during this week before this game. And he made a comment about how I don't like to do the talking. I like to let my play on the field do the talking. This is coming from a head coach who sat there and whined and cried and talk about player safety and all these other things that he's done after the Ravens game. Like, to call a spade, I mean, he's just being such a hypocrite with how he is. He sits there and he talks about, at one point he'll make a comment in these presses where he talks about how the coaches and myself have to do better. And then he turns around and saying, well, we're doing the best we can with them. It's just their fundamentals. Like, we can only do so much with their fundamentals. Like, stop.
If their fundamentals aren't good after your third year coaching the Broncos, that's on you, coach. Sorry.
Yeah. Like, this complete issue of it. And I mean, I put the tweet out there last night in a joking manner, but on all honesty, it was like me saying that the Broncos are 0-4 since I saw them live for the first time is taking more accountability than any of these coaches have. Like,
it's frustrating because I'm in the minority here. Rudy Dominguez coming in with 200 stars here over on Facebook. Thank you so much, Rudy. Hope you have a great Friday. Thank you for spending some time with us here. But I'm just so frustrated about it with Vic Fangio. And the thing that frustrates me too is I think the scheme can work. I know it's not working right now for the Broncos, but we've seen it across the league, enough of a sample size for other teams, other players, et cetera, that it can work. But it's a zone team that takes buy-in, and also somewhat it takes your offense the offense cannot be completely inept. And right now the Broncos the last 4 weeks has been pretty damn close to completely inept. So it's frustrating. It seems like the writing's on the wall, which is unfortunate because how the head coach cycle does not line up with the Broncos being sold cycle. But gonna have to figure it out and gonna have to make the best of it.
Now, my question to you is, how much of the scheme that we're seeing this year with the Broncos is really Vic Fangio's scheme? Because there are some similarities to last year, but there are a lot of differences that we didn't see, a lot of changes. And watching it, especially on the defensive line, I mean, this is a team that did a lot of 1.5 gapping last year, and now we're seeing Shelby Harris 2 gap a lot, which he did his Vic Fangio's first year at nose tackle and failed at, then got moved back to the edge where he was 1 gapping and did well. We see Mike Purcell 1 gapping when he's a great 2 gapper, and then the coverage stuff, it's a lot more man this year than it was. Like, I don't know. I like Vic Fangio as a defensive head coach. I like his scheme, but I'm just not sure what we're seeing is really mostly his scheme.
Yeah, and we'll get into that more in just a second. We want to get through some of these supers because you guys are making it lit on Friday night. Aaron Lynch up here in the Pacific Northwest with me. We got to hang out sometime. At least it sounds like the bomb cyclone's going to miss us here in Seattle, Nick. Thank goodness for that. It does sound like it's going to rain like crazy on Sunday. So get to watch football without having to be stressed about it. It's going to be great. That has to count for something. I'll take it, Aaron. And thank you so much for the $5 over on YouTube. That means a heck of a lot. We got Naj double dipping here, coming back in with another 20. God, so nice. Naj says, thanks for the kind words, bro. And I will say, in our little small group chat we have, Eric immediately after meeting you was like, Naj was the dude, man. He was so awesome. That's honest to God. So that's pretty awesome that you guys got to make that connection. And thank you for hanging out with us tonight. He said, I had an awesome time meeting you, my man. And the other brothers, thankfully, it was probably the last win of the year also. Broncos will win at least. What do you think? Broncos over under the rest of the season, 2.5.
I have that's tough because I think that they could win. I think they could win 3, but one of them I'm iffy about, so I could see 2. Like in the 3 games, the Lions, Washington football team, and the Eagles. The Eagles are the one that it can go either way for me.
You don't think they'll luck their way into one AFC West game because of how fluky the divisional games can be? Okay, go. Well, you heard it here, guys. Broncos going 0-6 in the division from Erick Trickel. You guys can add him if he's wrong. Shane coming in now over on Facebook. Shane, I know why I got confused earlier this week. It's because you have a different picture on Facebook than YouTube. So that's what's going on. His lovely wife here. Watching the press conference today just reaffirmed my belief Fangio needs to go. I believe in the players, but not the coaches. I don't think there's nuance to all of this, but I think the most important thing is the subject A in your comment here does not believe in subject B. Players don't believe in the coaches anymore. It's pretty obvious to see that. And because of that, the whole thing is falling apart. And I'm not sure what firing Fangio mid-season does, but how many teams actually galvanize after that, especially the injuries the Broncos have right now, and how much that makes things unsettled, and how tough the AFC West is too. I don't see it happening maybe midseason unless it's completely revolting in there in the locker room. But I think the writing's on the wall. Vic Fangio is gone at the end of the season. Bold statement, Nick. I know. Bold statement.
I think he's gone. I don't think that they make changes during the season.
Yeah.
And it doesn't sound like they'll make any changes to play callers, even though I think that's the changes that they should be making. Simply because when you make changes in the season, you typically have somebody on your staff that you want to get a look at in that position on the interim to see if they can take it full time. And there's no one on the staff for any of the positions. No one for special teams coordinator, no one for head coach, no one for offensive coordinator. There's just no one for that. So I just don't think they make changes during the season.
Yeah, absolutely. And we got one from Eric coming in here, $10 over on YouTube as well. Did Scangarello and Munchak style mix, or was it truly Vic Fangio not liking him? I know it's spilled milk, but Fangio said zone scheme gives him fits. Last night showed it. Munchak, historically, my understanding is more gap scheme, more power centric, where Scangarello is the zone stuff. So I think that Scangarello and Vic Fangio maybe had some differences in offensive philosophy that went back and forth. Maybe they didn't mesh the most. And if Vic Fangio was going to go down, he wanted to go down with his guy, Pat Shurmur. And hats off to you, Vic. I think that's what's going on right now. You're going down with your guy, Pat Shurmur. But what do you think here to Eric's question?
There's got to be careful with how I word things with this one. There were issues between Scangarello and Munchak because their styles do not mix.
Yeah, they're
and at multiple times during the season, there was talks that they're going to change it up. And then they planned for a change up during the season or during the game week. And then during the game, Scangarello went back to what he knows best, which really strained the offensive line. And we saw that on the field. Vic Fangio didn't want a rookie offensive play caller with him being a rookie head coach. He wanted somebody with experience. And that didn't happen. That caused some issues there. There was just a lot of issues with Scangarello behind the scenes that showed that he just wasn't ready to be a play caller. And not because his play calling was, really was bad or anything. It was just multiple issues with more than Munchak and Vic Fangio, with other coaches, with players, that just ultimately led to Vic Fangio going to Elway and saying, he's got to go. I want to get in my guy, and that happening.
Yep. It's rough. I think it's because, it's the devil's, kind of thing, but like Broncos fans, it's okay to move on. We don't have to go back. Like I thank God nobody's claiming we should bring back Keenum. I think I saw Brandon Perna tweet that in jest, but it's maybe none of them were the option, and maybe we should just move forward. Moving forward now, Donnie Matthews coming under the stars over on Facebook. Thank you so much, Donnie. That means a lot to us. And Shane Mapes coming in with 100 stars, and Donnie with 100 stars too. So thank you guys very much. Getting your chance to win that Patrick Surtain jersey. And we have some more supers here, but real quick, your thoughts on Surtain yesterday? I thought he had a pretty good game, couple missed tackles, but and this doesn't mean anything, but he gets like plus 5 points for me because his swag and drip is like on point. Like if I was making a corner, and I don't know if you ever played NCAA football back in the day, but like you could make recruits, and like the ones with like the visor, the eye black, the half sleeves here, the gloves. I mean, Patrick Surtain's aesthetic is amazing. He just, like, when he walks off the bus, I was like, yeah, that dude's in a 5-star cornerback. No doubt in my mind. But he had a great game too, down the field. A couple missed tackles. Maybe refs could have gone some another way in a couple of them, but like great game for Surtain overall, I would say. And the arrow is definitely pointing up.
Yeah, and I mean, he's been playing really good football for the most part over the few weeks. Some issues, and those issues really show up with change of direction, which I'm not trying to harp on. It's just
what
a
are you saying?
Consistent issue I saw in college that's showing up here. He's starting to show tricks and techniques to help cover for it, which is great to see. And I mean, yeah, my biggest concern with him is that he's a physical corner, but we're not seeing it against the run. There's a lot of basically business decisions coming, and that is where it concerns me because, I mean, I've had issues with that ever since I watched Hollywood Brown just completely shove and push Patrick Surtain way out of the play for a touchdown. Like, ever since then, I've had issues with Patrick Surtain against the run.
Yeah, got to be better there. I'll give him a pass right now because it's Good Vibes Friday, and I don't need none of that negativity. So I thought he had a great game, and I'm really excited about what he's going to do going forward. And he's going to get better. And maybe if this scheme next year is more press man heavy, that could be great because Surtain and press with that length and the physicality and how calm he is in phase doing that, not playing that off-ball stuff, could totally change my perspective on him on this team going forward, even although I think he's already going to be good.
And multiple veteran corners have already tweeted out and said that his press technique is like on point, like nearly perfect, like multiple comments from current corners as well, talking about how good of a press corner, how good his technique is there, which coming out of college, like there was no concern about his technique when working press. Like that's why I felt that he should have been going to a defensive scheme that does that, which also leads into how this really isn't Vic Fangio's scheme that we've come to know, but hey, he's super impressive. And George Paton got the guy that he wanted.
Put a pin in that real quick because I want to come back to that point that you made about Vic Fangio's scheme, but we have to get to our supers because you guys are the stars of the show. Base case coming back in. Thoughts on Paton so far? If he makes no moves, would that lessen your opinion of him? It's time for him to put in work. If he doesn't make any moves at the coaching position, I don't really care because the season's probably going either way anyway. And if you fire the coaches, that's just an admission that it's going nowhere. I mean, I would love to see the data. How many times have teams actually fired their coaches and gone on to win the playoffs that season or make the playoffs even? Probably not often. Those guys are getting fired because they're not going there and not a lot of times. At that point, honestly, I'd rather just play the young guys and continue the wrong direction record-wise and move up the draft board. But that's just me. I care about draft pick position, even though it hasn't really helped the Broncos very much recently. But as making no moves, I think he has to make some moves at the deadline. I really do. You need to create, I know this team is so injured, but I want to create some spot for that like back end of the depth chart guys to get some reps this season to see if we got any sort of like luck in that end, get some reps for some guys on the back end of the roster and get some much needed draft capital. This Broncos team, they've had a lot of extra draft capital these last few seasons. Don't think they have a lot of that this season off the top of my head. I think they have 2 extra 6 because of that Trinity Benson trade, but other than that, they don't have a lot of extra capital. You have a lot of, I hate to say it, but dead weight with veterans on this team right now that could maybe, even if it brings you back another 6th round pick, that's another chance at a 4-year contract guy who could, at worst should improve your special teams. So I think that he has to make a move, and I would think less of him if he just sat on his hands and be like, oh, we could still compete. This team's not going nowhere.
I mean, I would kind of feel neutral if he doesn't do anything. If he goes out and becomes a buyer, I would be
off the table,
very upset and like just very concerned about it. But I agree, he needs to be a seller here at the deadline, and this will help me think that okay, he is more so that he is the right guy for the job. His free agent class hasn't looked so good.
No,
but his draft class is showing a lot of promise. Caden Stearns has showed a lot of promise. Quinn Miners. Draft is where his bread and butter is. So getting more capital for him to work what he does with where he does best, that is the best thing for him, especially coming from the Vikings who absolutely love draft capital, getting those extra guys. And there's plenty of trade options on this Broncos team. There's a lot of guys on 1-year deals who just aren't going to be in the future plans for it. Kyle Fuller is one of them. I'm not sure Bryce Callahan's back. I don't think that both of Tim Patrick and Cortland Sutton are back. So there are options that they can float around. If they're on a short-term deal, 1 or 2 years left, there's a young guy behind them, they're not in the future plans, whatever the case may be, they should be floated out there on the trade deadline. And I know you'll get some flack for me. I know I'll get some flack for this, but I think that another one is float out Noah Fant. I mean, his issues as a blocker has just been so problematic. And we're starting to see it where he doesn't care so much on the field. There's not much fight in him. We saw a little bit in the second half of last night's game, but that's the first time we saw it all season. Yeah. I mean, I'd be very strict on what I want for him. And if I don't get it, I'm not moving him, but I would float his name out there.
I would probably too, but I don't think you're going to get, what would you accept? I would
want a 3rd round pick for him.
I was going to say, I need at least a 2nd. He's too athletic, too talented to give up. And you still have, 2 years of control, 3 years of control left. 2 or 3. I think you got to make that decision on that 5th year option at the end of this year. So far, not trending the way you'd want. But when you see him flash out there, the talent's there. And it's not like the quarterback position where the lows weigh more than the position where the tight end, pass catchers, I think the flashes matter more than like a position like quarterback. Another one that flashes matter less, probably tackle, cornerback. Those ones where it's the killer plays that kill you. But Nathan coming in with the red thumbs up here. I'm not sure what that means, Nathan, but $2 over on YouTube. Thank you so much, Nathan. We appreciate that. Appreciate you hanging out with us. We also got Peter coming in here. When will the Broncos win a game? Could be this weekend or next weekend, I guess, at this point. It could be. I don't know. They were close to winning this week. It's a team that is discombobulated. And, I think that, unfortunately, they believe in themselves almost as much as we believe in them right now, which is not a lot. So, I don't know. It's the NFL, and a lot of guys are going to be competing for not only themselves. A lot of them are going to be competing for themselves going forward. And you might look yourself into a win, right? Like, there's just too much talent out there, too much pride, too much guys that are trying to put out good tape so that way they can get another contract. So they're not going to completely fold. They'll win at least one more game. The question, I set the line at 2.5, given how they're playing. And there's also not a lot of help on the way. I just want to see what this team looks like when Jeudy back before I totally bury them, because I think the offense could look a lot different with Jerry Jeudy in there, because they don't have anybody who replicates his skill. And that type of receiver is the straw that stirs the drink for what Shermer has liked to do historically.
Yeah. And you mentioned Jeudy, but another one why I don't want to completely bury this team so far is Bradley Chubb as well. I think getting him back on defense will be a huge piece. Now, there's still some time before that happens, but getting those two guys back, they change a lot for what they want to do on both sides of the ball. So not ready to bury them completely, but not too far from it.
Yeah, I totally. And a guy I'll never bury, Paul. Love Paul. Coming in here. Paul has always been, Paul's been a supporter with us since like the podcast days, going way back on Twitter. He actually sent me and my wife multiple nice things. He found our registry. Didn't even know that he found it and sent us some nice stuff. So shout out to Paul. Love you, Paul. You're a real one. You're an OG. Can we get a good to great head coach without ownership in place? Do we have enough cash to overplay to get the guy you want? Thanks. Thank you, Paul. For me, it's not so much the question I don't have here, and the concern I don't have is the cash side. I think if the Broncos want to get a guy, they will find the cash to pay him. It's more so you can't make any sort of promises to that head coach that hold any sort of weight, because once the new owner comes in, the dynamic changes completely. Oh, you want personnel decisions? Here comes a Jerry Jones-like owner. Really funny there, new head coach. You don't get that. Oh, you think you have multiple years here with George Paton? Heck no. The new owner's going to come in. You got 1 year, otherwise I'm bringing in my own guys. So you can't make any sort of promises or guarantees to that coach outside of the contract itself, but like decision-making, et cetera, that the owner would not probably find their way around. So it's just the instability without the owner and any sort of actual promise, power, et cetera, that you can get while you don't have an owner in place.
Yeah, the timing for the new ownership seems to be sometime after the draft, after free agency at the very least.
Yeah.
And it's just well after the coaching thing. And as you said, there's just no promises you can make. Even George Paton has to feel like new owner comes in, like there's pressure on him to sit there and be able to keep his job longer. And it's just a trickle down effect there. And part of this too is with coaches looking specifically at trying to pull them in. I don't think it's a cash issue. I think it's going to be an issue of how interested are they in going into a division that has Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert, and Derek Carr really starting to ball out.
Hey, look at you. Always giving Lance and I a hard time about Derek Carr, top 10 quarterback, Derek Carr. Sorry,
finally, he's finally hit that point.
He's been amazing this year, man. It really sucks. It really sucks. Stupid eyeliner looking Sid dude from Toy Story playing good quarterback, making it bad for the Broncos. Makes me upset, but he's a good quarterback, unfortunately. Peter Middleton coming in here. Linebacker question. The Broncos linebackers are now starting Browning and Stranad. Not Browning. Browning had another injury setback, I think, or he's definitely not. They don't think he's mentally ready, but I think he had concussion. That was it. So maybe you will see him now that Kaiser's out, but I think the Broncos will make a move. It gives them an opportunity to prove they can play in this league. I would take everything you see from Browning this year with a grain of salt, given how far he is behind from the scheme side of things and the fact that they were kind of cross-training him early and he had the injuries. So Strnad, I think you can probably make some sweeping decisions on him. I know it's his first year, but it's his second year in the system. He had a year in the classroom, right? That a lot of people in the media really hyped up. I don't know how much it mattered. But you're looking to see if those guys are competent. Either way, linebacking room is going to look a lot different next year, or completely the same with AJ and Josie Jewell or one of them back, but we'll see. Yeah. Shane coming in. Go ahead.
On that note, is like, I'm with you, and it's not just with Browning with his cross training since he entered, it goes back to college. He was just used in so many different ways that it hurt his development at one specific spot. It was one concern I had with him coming into the NFL. The Broncos, they originally wanted him to come in and learn these multiple positions. Then he suffered a hairline fracture in his leg that set him back, kept him from out there getting to see the field. So with him, I take it with a grain of salt. With how athletic he is, I want him to see the field this year to see how much growth he can show over the time, and then get him out on the field next year as well. And with a little bit of a shorter lease next year, because at that point he should be starting to get things down. But Justin Strnad, like, it's at a point where over these final few games, if he doesn't start to show improvements, then it's you can basically yank him.
Yeah. No, I mean, the thing about Strnad too is, like, I don't know where this false narrative came that he was this dynamic athlete. Like, he tested worse at the NFL Combine than Josie Jewell did, and everybody likes to say that Josie Jewell is this unathletic small white linebacker. He's not the most athletic, but, like, I don't know what you were thinking you're getting with Strnad. Strnad is very fluid in space. I'll give him that, and he feels comfortable going backwards, which you can't say that for every linebacker. But this dynamic athlete, not the case. And because of that, also the point I wanted to get to was how much value does he actually bring to the special teams? Because he's not flying around as a gunner or on any of the coverage units. So, granted, 5th round pick. You know, if you miss on him, la-di-da. God, who was the linebacker the Broncos took a few years ago from LSU? He was like a 4th or 5th round pick, and he never even like played. Like Barrow or something. It was during the.
Barrow.
Barrow, yeah. Who cares? I mean, you missed a 5th round pick. That's a lottery ticket. But you know, if Strnad doesn't live up to the hype, it's not because he was a bust. I saw somebody commenting here, Strnad's a bust. 5th round pick, man. I don't know. Like, you're hoping on that one. Don't depend your, like, not going to bed hungry based on a 5th round pick, right? Like, it's a lottery ticket at best. It's a scratcher.
I have the philosophy that day 3 picks can't be busts just because they're such a long shot.
I think maybe the first few picks of the 4th round, like, I think the first, like, 120. Yeah, right. Like, there's some extent to that, but for sure, Shane Daniels coming in here over on Facebook. Albert Okwuegbunam, when he was healthy, was a much better run blocker and appears to be just as athletic as Fant. You know, I was definitely an ardent Fant supporter and defender, and I don't think it's as much I talked about it with Scott this morning. I don't think it's as much the athleticism. It is, he plays a little bit soft. I mean, and I want him to be more and less like a soccer player. Less like a soccer player because he doesn't need to be so soft. You know, you're playing American football, get out there and punch somebody in the mouth, right? Like, you're from Nebraska, you went to Iowa, play some physical football. You should be used to that in the Big Ten West. The other one is I want him to be more like a soccer player because he plays with absolutely no pace. Everything, it's like a old school video game. I said this morning, sorry for the repeat, but like in today's games, right, you have like the toggle where you can kind of control how fast a guy goes. Fant is just forward and back. He's either going forward or he's stopped. There is absolutely no pace or control to his game, and that's true for route running. That's true with after the catch. I mean, if he could just slow play a cornerback or some point and then throttle it up just a little bit, he might be able to create a little bit of separation where the goddamn 190-pound cornerback isn't tackling him at his ankles for 1 yard short, right? He just has no pace to his play, and it drives me insane.
Yeah, I mean, there was a play last night, and it was the first one where he actually seemed to fight for extra yards. And all he did basically was he lowered his shoulder and fell forward. Like, that was it. And that was the most fight he showed. Yeah. Like, it's just, I mean, calling him soft, like, I've kind of tiptoed around the topic after getting reamed for referring to Lloyd Cushenberry as soft last year, which he was. But, I mean,
just double down, why don't you? Just
Noah Fant has played soft. Yeah. I mean, there's no doubt about it. I mean, there's been multiple times where he's been in the second level and he just kind of gives this weak little shove to the guy as he cuts in front of him. Like, that's not going to cut it. And to me, what's so problematic with it is that last year, in his rookie year weren't this bad as run blockers. And last year, he actually showed growth in that aspect, only to be worse than he was even in college. Like, just what's happened to it? Is there no desire to be a run blocker? Like, what is it?
I don't want to microanalyze too much for this because obviously at the end, you don't want to make too many excuses for these guys, whatnot. But I know that he did have a leg injury prior to that Seattle game. How much is that impacting him? Is he playing through injury? And also he suddenly and tragically lost his mom almost right before the season started as well. And I know that we are on here, calling Fant soft, Cushionberry soft. These are human beings. It is our job also to critique them and, not pull punches, but they also are, dealing with stuff like that. So I'm not quite ready to quit on Noah Fant as a talent because he is talented, but the end result is, he's in a results business and he has to play better.
Yeah. And I think that a lot of people forget that is like, none of this has to do with how they are as a person. It's just strictly from a football aspect. We don't know them. Like, we don't know how they are. So we don't know what they're going through. And I think Dak Prescott's actually a good example here because of everything that he's dealt with mentally. Like, it's just, I get paid to break down the football side of things. And that's it. But with him is like, if he could put it all together and play to his athleticism, he could be one of the best tight ends in the NFL, but we're just not seeing it.
Yeah.
And one thing too, I noticed, I don't know if this is the case with you. Whenever he runs, he looks so slow. He looks slower. Speed. He looks so much slower than Albert Okwuegbunam even. Like, it's just so ridiculous to see for me.
Yeah. Well, hopefully Fant can turn it around because he is a talented athlete out there. And when he's rolling, I mean, we've seen it. So hopefully it'll get better for him. I do want to keep going here. I thought that the Broncos, sticking on the offensive side of the ball, Teddy Bridgewater, not the long-term answer. We know that. We said that coming into the year. I think that's the reason a lot of us were besides ourselves when the Broncos passed on Justin Fields at 9 overall, because we didn't have much faith in Drew Lock being a long-term answer. And we thought that at best case, Teddy Bridgewater could be a short-term solution this year. And we were worried about the 2022 class putting us right back in this situation. Here we are now. But your thoughts on Bridgewater? And I said it this morning. I want to give him credit also again for going out there and toughing it because he was obviously injured and probably hopped up on, Toradol or whatever the heck they give those guys. But rough game as far as his physical ability. That interception, though, man, I can't get that out of my mouth. That interception he made, I think it was, I said earlier today it was second down. I think it was actually third down, but you took points off the board. This is not a team that can take points off the board. You're not good enough.
It was 3rd and 9. And
yeah,
it's just, I think this is one thing that I do think that Vic Fangio actually said pretty well during his press conference today. And it basically alludes to that he just missed the safety. They thought he had it, so he didn't have to try to really drop it in the bucket, can kind of straight line it there a little bit, lead to a little bit of an underthrow with the corner playing. I think it was John Brown was the receiver playing the backside hip.
Yep, it was Brown.
And the safety came up and then just dropped back immediately. And as soon as the ball was thrown, basically. And I just think that it was a little bit of bad luck, a bad decision, and really looking back on that play, there really wasn't anywhere else for him to go. So it was just a thing of all or nothing really at that point. But this is a situation, as you said, is they needed the points. Throw the ball away, take the field goal at that point. Don't try to force it. That's one of the reasons why Drew Lock didn't win the starting job. He tries to force things so much. So Teddy Bridgewater, I mean, he can't go out there and do those kinds of things, especially with his arm strength.
Yeah, there's many points in that game where I'm looking at the score and I'm like, my God, they took 3 points off the board. It'd be a 1-possession game right now, and you have the ball back in your hands, and anything can happen from there. But you took 3 points off the board, and after that, you were down 2 possessions almost, I think, for the rest of the game until you scored that last touchdown to make it 17-10. It was not that play really left a bad taste in my mouth, and Higher Learnings makes a good point about the safety making a good play, baiting Teddy, but that's the reason Teddy is playing, right? He's supposed to be avoiding those decisions and keeping it close and not taking points off the board. And he took off he took off 3 points, probably. I'm assuming McManus makes that, even though it was windy and not great conditions. And you can't operate that way. And who knows how the game turns from there. And I don't think this game was lost because of Teddy Bridgewater, but that's why we have you in there, to not make that play. And he did. So that one bummed me out.
In hindsight, that that interception meant little, really, when it comes to it. They score 3 points. They get back up there. It's 13-17. Well, the Browns, they still just ran the ball down their throat. And the running back had a chance to go get into the end zone and collapse so they can just run out the clock.
Yep.
So really means little there. And they score the touchdown. They score the field goal. Doesn't matter because the defense couldn't get a stop when it mattered. But at the time, it was a bad play on him. It was a misread, got baited, like just a lot of bad things happened there in a situation where you shouldn't be making that kind of play.
Yeah, and shout out to Scott giving us a quote from Teddy about that interception in the chat here saying, I was just mad after the throw that I couldn't get it to him the way I wanted to. The guy just made a play, talking about the safety there. We had a good concept called, the guy bit down and basically was able to backpedal and turn and run and make a play on the post. It was just one of those throws when you watch it, it was like, man, like that is a throw I know I can make, but just did not get it to where I wanted to. So better throw, maybe a guy with a little better arm talent gets it in there, maybe seen it a little bit earlier. But, we brought in Teddy to not make that play, and he made it in the red zone. Offense is not good enough to take points off the board. So drives me nuts. Peter Middleton coming in here saying, where do the Broncos spend their money in the offseason? First off, they can start contributing to Mile High Huddle, start tuning in, giving us some super chats. Maybe they can win themselves a Patrick Surtain jersey. Who knows? But what do you think here for Peter's question?
I have to think that they put a lot into the offensive line. George Paton saw the Vikings offensive line struggle pretty consistently, and they always had these great talents to somewhat overcome it. I think they spend there. I think he'll go buy himself about 15 corners because he loves his corners. And then I think they also look a little bit at the linebacker position as well. And possibly by bringing back one of Alexander Johnson or Josie Jewell. A lot is going to depend here on whoever ends up the coach of the Broncos as well.
You took my point. I was going to say, let's wait and see. First thing is paying Sutton / Patrick. That's probably number one that you're trying to decide here. I think Sutton has shown enough. I know that he had that really bad looking play where he jogged off the field in that Raiders game after that interception. I mean, that one, rough, not a good look, especially from a captain. But I get it. I mean, he's playing for a contract, and that's how he had that serious knee injury last year. But that one, rough. But Sutton, I mean, he's a more dynamic player than Patrick. It's pretty easy to see on the field. And if you don't want to let guys like that go, like you are at a talent deficiency, you should not be letting good young players go like that. So probably Sutton. After that, it depends on coach, because you're going to be running some new schemes next year. And those free agents, even much more than draft picks, are going to jumpstart you being able to run the scheme that you want to run. So where are they going to spend? It totally depends on what they're looking to do with the new coach, in my opinion, especially with as much money as they have.
Yep.
All right. Well, do we have some more coming in here? We got going to have some Graham Glasgow money available, says Scott in the background. And that's true. I feel bad for Glasgow because I feel like he's been okay, but he's not worth what he's paid, right? Like he's getting paid huge money. And people who say, Drew Lock and the Broncos did not do anything to help Drew Lock. Maybe you can argue that Shermer wasn't the best fit, but going out making Melvin Gordon a top 5 paid back in terms of APY, Graham Glasgow a top 10 played guard. We're banking on Juwan James. Yeah, top 5 guard. There you go, man. That's crazy for Glasgow at that time. And then going out and using your first 2 picks on KJ Hamler and Jerry Jeudy. Like, to me, that was going all in on Drew Lock. And maybe you blame the coaches, definitely deserved, but you'd hope that you see more given the investment there. But is what it is. So, guys, I think we got to get on out of here. Eric, you want to leave the people with? Oh, okay, let's hear it. Let's do it.
With Graham Glasgow he's one with the issues on the offensive line. I would try to get him to accept a pay cut. I don't think he would. He really has no reason to, just because he hasn't been terrible, but he hasn't been worth what he's getting paid. And there's so many issues on this offensive line, and he's been not the best, but he's been solid. And I would consider looking at moving him to center, where I think that a lot of his issues will be covered up. But so we'll see what happens, but he's definitely not worth what he's getting paid.
And guys, we have some breaking news on the pod, so I guess we're going to keep going here live. I don't know if Scott can pull it up on Twitter, but Woody Page just reported that according to Mike Kliss, Mike Kliss just reported Fangio and Shermer are considering resigning tomorrow. So, all right, I guess the show must go on for now, unless everybody's got to get out of here. But I guess this is going to be honest reactions. Your thoughts. Apparently, both coaches are thinking about resigning. Oh, and then you also have Troy Rank saying, talk to NFL source who said absolutely positively nothing true about tweet tonight saying Fangio and Shermer are considering resigning Saturday. Both are under intense scrutiny. Who knows what the future holds, but nothing is anticipated by Saturday. So conflicting reports out there in Broncos country. Do you think these guys would resign? I mean, God, what talk about incompetence? Like, what would even force that to happen?
I mean, just the pressure. I mean, from the fans and from up top and everything, and even in the locker room. I mean, there's issues in this locker room. Stuff that can't fully say right now, but there's issues going on, and there's been issues going on since the offseason. I've been trying to find Mike Kliz's comment on this. I haven't been able to see it. But Woody Page, not to harp on him or anything like that, he does have his moments of trolling a little bit, so we'll see what happens is here.
Yeah, I can't say anything from Kliss. It was from Woody Page that said, according to Mike Kliss source, Fangio and Shermer considering resigning. So I don't know. We'll see. I love Woody, dating back to around the Horn days. And we have a quick comment coming in. Another. See, if we just keep going, things happen. Paul coming in saying, I call Fant Jane. That's not very nice, Paul. Come on. I know you're a nice guy. What's going on? No, it's nice. Keep it coming. Call him whatever you want for the $20 super. But we're hoping we can turn it around. And man, maybe big news there with Kliss. I see a lot of Broncos reporters are pushing against it right now. So I don't think it is happening. Actually, I don't think. Do you think this will happen?
No. And Mike Kliss even came out and said, I'm not sure who source is, but I'm not saying this or reporting this. It's wrong.
Woody.
Troy Rank, like there's a lot of people that are really going out and sending this. And watching his press conference today, it didn't seem like Vic Fangio was a guy who was on the verge of resigning. Like, no, in all honesty.
Why would he even take the press conference today if he knew he was going to resign Saturday? So I don't know. Yeah, I don't think it was Kliss. I think it was Woody Page out there just creating a little controversy. I mean, Woody Page said the Broncos were going to trade up for Trey Lance and broke my heart too. So whatever. Yeah. But love you guys. I think we should probably get on out of here. Eric, do you have any words of wisdom for everybody before we get on out?
Take a step back, breathe. Broncos aren't everything in the world. Enjoy time with family. And enjoy time with friends. Just things are rough in the football world. Just take a step back, take a breather, be like Nick, go out to the crappy freaking nature stuff or be like me, just bury yourself in anime or the draft. Like just do something and just kind of take a step back. And I do want to say thank you for everybody for your guys' support. For last week, my mom was right before we went live last week. I got a text that my mom was going in for surgery. She came out just after we got off. Everything was good, and turns out that it wasn't even cancer, so she doesn't have to do chemotherapy or anything like that. It was just a regular benign tumor, so everything's all good there. She got back last Saturday and has been resting at home since. So I want to thank you guys all for your support, and that's another reason why it's like football's football, but there's other things that are bigger than that.
Yeah, you're definitely right, and glad to hear about your mom and hope everyone's doing well. It's a tough time for Broncos country. I know that we've been in here for a while, but definitely want to harp on choosing kindness when you possibly can. It's easy to say, and it's tough sometimes from where we sit and being very emotional in the moment when things are happening, but just choosing kindness to each other and hopefully leaving you guys on a good note there and some positive vibes. Did you have something you want to say there?
Yeah, and on Twitter, guys, like, don't be those type of people that go and voice your frustrations at the players, man. They know it. They feel it. They hear it. They see it. Like, man, you tweeting at them saying they suck or whatever, it's not helping anything, man. Just don't do that.
It's just making you look like an ass. If you're going to do it, then make sure you go off of that. But everybody have a good one. This is obviously Dove Valley Deep Divers. It comes at you live every Friday night at 5:00 Mountain Time. You guys can follow us, Eric and myself, on Twitter. Eric at Erick Trickel and myself at Nick Kendell MHH. Also follow us at DVDD_pod and at Mile High Huddle. Facebook folks. Ooh, go ahead. Is there a
it was a fake Mike Kliss account that Woody Page got got baited on.
God, classic. Man, these boomers out here on the social webs getting fooled all the time. Follow us on Facebook also. Speaking of boomers, at facebook.com/Mile High Huddle and facebook.com/Mile High Huddle Pod. And also make sure you're following us on YouTube at Mile High Huddle. Make sure you subscribe, like, and share also there. So, you guys, you're great. We love you. Everyone have a great weekend. Eric, again, we don't get a chance to do this very often. Any words of wisdom for myself, for Scott, who's sitting down here, been helping us, and our community at large?
I probably, if I really took a little bit of time, I could think of some snarky draft comment for you. But I guess the one thing is, like, don't be baited with stinky breath. There we go.
Malik McDowell,
that'll be my snarky. That'll be my snarky. He had a really good game last night, which is part of the reason why it popped in my head.
He's a good player. Thank you guys so much. We're going to see y'all next week. I'll see you guys tomorrow night for Mile High Insiders. You guys have a great weekend. Enjoy your... Go ahead. Sorry.
One more thing since we didn't talk on it. Make sure you guys go to Facebook and .com/Mile High Huddle, become a supporter there. You guys will get access to all the shows, including the Trickel Zone, which is no longer on Saturdays because of my mom's health issues and everything. It's now on Mondays at, I want to say, 1 p.m. Mountain Time. I want to say, so make sure you guys are doing that. And those of you who are Facebook supporters, 1 p.m. Mountain Time on Mondays now.
All right. And guys, don't be like Woody Page. Double check your sources. Everyone have a good night. And I'll see you tomorrow. Have a good weekend. Go Broncos.
You've been listening to the Huddle Up Podcast. Join Broncos Country's deep divers at milehighhuddle.com to keep the conversation going.